I was born in the winter of 1945, but my real memories don't begin until the early 1970s, when life finally slowed down enough for pain to settle in. By then, I was a woman in my late 20s, already tired in ways young women shouldn't be. But to understand how I became that woman, the one people later called crazy, bitter, unwanted, you gotta know where I came from. I grew up in Detroit, on the east side, back when the factories still breathed smoke and men came home smelling like oil and metal. We were working class folks. No silver spoons, no soft landings. My daddy worked the auto plant, long hours, loud machines, hands always cracked and bleeding. My mama stayed home, not because she wanted to, but because someone had to keep the house standing while the world kept hitting us. Times weren't easy. Ain't never been, even in the 70s. When people say America was moving forward, our block stayed stuck. Old houses, cold winters, heat that barely worked. Some nights, Mama would put extra water in the soup so it could feed us all. She'd say she wasn't hungry. I knew better. Hunger teaches you how to lie with a straight face. I learned early how to stay quiet, how to listen more than talk, how to survive without asking for much. School was my only escape, but even there, life hit hard. Kids could smell poverty on you, on your shoes, on your coat. Teachers didn't mean harm, but they didn't expect much either. I wasn't dumb. I was tired. There's a difference folks don't care to notice. Faith was the only thing that held our family together. Every Sunday, no matter how cold or broke we were, Mama pressed my dress and tied my hair back. Church bells echoed through empty streets, and for 1 hour, we felt human again. Safe, seen by God, if not by the world. By the time I was old enough to dream, those dreams were small. I didn't want riches. I wanted steady, a warm kitchen, a man who came home, children who stayed. That was it. That was my whole prayer. I married young, too young. Back then, girls like me didn't wait for perfect. We waited for possible. My husband worked construction when there was work, drank when there wasn't. He wasn't cruel at first, just distant, like a man already halfway gone. When my daughter was born in 1972, I held her like she was the last good thing this world owed me. Lord knows, I loved that child with everything I had. I skipped meals so she could eat, worked cleaning houses while she slept in neighbors' arms. My whole life bent around her. Every decision, every sacrifice, but somewhere along the way, I disappeared. Detroit changed fast. Factories closed. Men lost jobs. Anger filled the air. You could feel it walking down the street. Sirens at night. arguments through thin walls, hope started packing its bags, one family at a time. I tried to hold things together, tried to be strong, tried to smile when my bones felt heavy. But strength ain't loud, it's quiet. And quiet women get forgotten. By the late 70s, my marriage was already cracking. My husband stayed out longer, came home colder, and my daughter, my sweet girl, started looking at me like I was old, even when I wasn't, like I didn't understand the world anymore. Maybe I didn't. All I knew was this: I gave everything I had, and it still wasn't enough. And that truth followed me into every year that came after. I didn't know then how bad it would get. I didn't know the day would come when my own voice would be ignored. But life was already teaching me its hardest lesson. Sometimes, loving too much is what breaks you first. By the time I turned 30, life had already taken more from me than it ever gave back. People think youth is soft and bright. For some of us, it's just the beginning of learning how to swallow pain without making a sound. The late 70s rolled into the 80s, and Detroit kept falling apart piece by piece. Factories shut their doors like they were tired of us. Men lined up for jobs that never came. Women learned how to stretch dollars till they screamed. I was no different. I worked wherever I could: laundry rooms, diners, cleaning offices after dark. My hands stayed raw, my back stayed bent, and my heart stayed worried. My marriage didn't survive that pressure. It didn't explode all at once. It cracked slowly, quietly, the way old walls do. My husband stopped talking. Then he stopped coming home. When he finally left, there was no fight, just an empty chair at the table, and a silence so loud it hurt my ears. I became a single mother in a world that didn't care much for women like me. My daughter was my whole reason to breathe. I woke up tired, went to bed tired, and prayed tired. Everything I did was for her. School clothes, packed lunches, warm coats in winter. I tried to shield her from the ugliness of our life, but kids see more than we think. They feel it, they carry it. She grew fast, faster than I was ready for. By the early 80s, she was a teenager, sharp-tongued and restless. She wanted more than Detroit, more than me. She talked about leaving, about love, about freedom like it was something she deserved just for surviving childhood. I didn't blame her. I just wished she'd look back once in a while and see what it cost me to get her there. That's when he came into her life. I remember the first time I saw him. Something in my chest tightened. Call it a mother's instinct. Call it fear shaped by too many hard years. I didn't trust him. He smiled too easily, talked too smooth, had eyes that never stayed still. I tried to warn her gently at first, then more firmly. Then desperately, she didn't hear me. She said I was controlling, bitter, stuck in the past. She said I didn't understand how the world worked anymore. That hurt more than any slap ever could. I wasn't trying to cage her. I was trying to save her. But love makes young people deaf. By the time she announced she was getting married, my heart was already breaking. I begged her to slow down, to wait, to really see the man she was tying her life to. She told me I was ruining her happiness, that I embarrassed her, that I drank too much, which wasn't even true, but lies stick when folks want them to. At her wedding, I felt like a stranger. People whispered. I saw the looks, the way they watched me like I might cause trouble. When I tried to speak, tried to warn them, I was pulled aside, hushed, ignored. My own daughter turned her face away from me. I screamed inside that church, not with my mouth, with my soul, but nobody listened. After that day, she drifted away fast. Phone calls stopped. Visits became rare. When they did come, they were cold, short, full of tension. I could feel the door closing, inch by inch. Life taught me another cruel lesson then. You can give birth to someone, raise them with your blood and bones, and still be left behind like you never mattered. By the end of the 80s, I was alone more nights than not, sitting by the window, watching the streetlights flicker, wondering where I went wrong, wondering if loving too hard had made me invisible. I didn't know yet how much worse things were going to get. I didn't know silence was only the beginning. All I knew was this: the people you protect the most are sometimes the ones who walk away without looking back. By the time the 90s came around, I was already living a life that felt smaller than the one I once imagined. Not because I dreamed big, but because reality kept shaving pieces off me until there wasn't much left to recognize. I moved through my days like an old house still standing, even though every beam inside was cracked. After my daughter married and drifted away, the silence in my home became unbearable. You don't realize how loud a child's presence is until it's gone. The walls echoed. The clock ticked like it was counting down something I couldn't stop. I tried to fill the emptiness with work, with routine, with faith. But loneliness has a way of sitting beside you, no matter how busy you stay. I took whatever jobs I could find: grocery stores, nursing homes, cleaning offices downtown where the lights stayed on all night, and nobody ever learned my name. I smiled when spoken to, kept my head down. People don't see middle-aged women unless they're in the way. I learned that quick. My body started to change then. My hands hurt in the mornings. My knees ached when winter came. Some nights I'd sit on the edge of the bed and wonder how much longer I could keep pushing myself like this. But there was no choice. There never was. Bills don't care how tired you are. Hunger don't wait for healing. I tried reaching out to my daughter. Letters first. Long ones. Careful ones. I chose my words like glass, afraid anything sharp might shatter what little connection we had left. Sometimes she wrote back. Short notes. Polite. Distant. Other times, nothing came at all. Each unanswered letter felt like a quiet rejection I had to learn how to live with. I heard things through others. Whispers. Concerns. Trouble in her marriage. His temper. His drinking. I prayed every night she'd be safe. That she'd come to me if things got bad. That she'd remember her mother wasn't her enemy. She didn't. When I tried to warn her again, she shut me out completely, told me to stay out of her life, said I was always looking for problems. That broke something inside me I never quite got back. I stopped talking, stopped explaining. When nobody believes your truth, silence feels easier. The world outside kept changing. Factories were gone. Neighborhoods emptied. Churches got quieter. Families scattered. And women like me, women who gave their whole lives to others, were left behind, expected to be grateful for scraps of attention. People started calling me difficult, strange, too emotional. Some even said I drank, though I barely touched the stuff. Funny how a lonely woman gets labeled, while a lonely man gets sympathy. I carried those names like stones in my pockets, sinking deeper each year. Still, I held on. I found comfort in small things. Morning sunlight through dusty curtains, the smell of coffee, hymns hummed under my breath while I cleaned. I talked to God like He was sitting right there, listening, even when nobody else was. Faith didn't fix my life, but it kept me from giving up on it. By the late 90s, my health started failing me. High blood pressure, sleepless nights, a constant ache in my chest that doctors said was stress. I laughed at that. Stress had been my shadow my whole life. The hardest part wasn't the pain. It was realizing how replaceable I had become. My daughter had her own world now. Friends, a husband, a life where I didn't fit. And I was left standing in the doorway of my own heart, holding love with nowhere to put it. I didn't know yet how deep the betrayal would go. I didn't know how loudly I'd be ignored when it mattered most. All I knew was this: sometimes survival doesn't look like winning. Sometimes it just looks like waking up again, even when your heart is already tired of beating. When I crossed into my 50s, something inside me finally slowed down. Not my body, that kept hurting more every year, but my expectations. I stopped waiting for life to be fair, stopped hoping people would suddenly understand me. That kind of hope gets heavy when you carry it too long. The late 90s faded into the early 2000s, and the world felt louder, faster, colder. Neighborhoods I once knew were gone. Faces changed. Stores closed. Even the church I'd leaned on most of my life had fewer voices singing, fewer hands reaching out. People were busy surviving their own storms. Nobody had time for an aging woman who asked for nothing and still got less. My daughter moved farther away, emotionally first, then physically. When she left the city, she didn't tell me right away. I heard it from someone else. That's how things were now. News about my own child came secondhand, like I was already written out of the story. Phone calls were rare. Holidays passed quietly. Sometimes weeks would go by without hearing her voice. I'd sit by the window, watching seasons change, wondering how a bond that once felt unbreakable could stretch so thin it almost disappeared. I tried to stay strong, but my health didn't care about pride. Arthritis settled into my bones. My hands shook when I held a cup. Nights grew longer. Sleep came in pieces. Some evenings, I'd lie awake listening to the house creak, every sound reminding me how alone I was. Then came the morning that changed everything. I woke up with a tightness in my chest, so strong it stole my breath. My vision blurred. I thought, this is it. I thought about my daughter. Wondered if she'd feel anything if I was gone. I called her from the hospital, my voice shaking, scared in a way I hadn't been since I was a child. She didn't come. She said she was busy, that she'd call later. That later never came. That day didn't kill me, but it took something precious with it. Whatever hope I had left that I mattered in her life faded right there, under those white hospital lights. I was discharged with medicine for my heart, but nobody gave me anything for the pain that settled deeper than my bones. After that, people started treating me like I was fragile, like I might break if spoken to too honestly. They spoke around me, not to me. Decisions got made without my voice. I learned how invisible aging makes a woman, especially one who already gave everything away. Still, I didn't turn bitter. I wanted to. Lord knows I did, but bitterness is loud, and I had learned how to survive quietly. I found peace in faith again, not the loud kind, not the kind that demands miracles, just a soft belief that God saw me even if my family didn't. I lit candles, whispered prayers, thanked Him for another morning, even when mornings hurt. Then came the day my daughter finally showed up at my door. Years older, harder, tired in ways I recognized too well. Her marriage had crumbled just like I'd feared. She cried in my arms like a child, and I held her without saying I told you so. Love doesn't keep score, not the real kind. But something had changed. I forgave her. truly. But forgiveness doesn't erase years of absence. It doesn't stitch trust back together the way it once was. We were closer, but not close, like strangers learning each other all over again. As the 2000s rolled on, I felt time pressing in. My reflection aged faster than I felt inside. Wrinkles told stories I never got to finish telling. And in the quiet, I finally understood. Loneliness doesn't always come from being alone. Sometimes it comes from being remembered too late. Now I'm 65 years old, sitting by the same window I've sat beside for years, watching the light fall softer than it used to. My hands don't move like they once did. My voice shakes when I speak. Some mornings, I forget what day it is, but I never forget what I lived through. Pain has a way of staying clear, even when everything else fades. I don't know how much longer I'll be here. I feel it in my bones. In the quiet way my heart beats now. Slower, careful, like it's choosing each moment on purpose. That's why I'm telling this story. Not to be pitied, not to be remembered as some sad woman life stepped on, but to leave something behind that matters. When I look back, I don't see one big tragedy. I see 1,000 small sacrifices, meals skipped, words swallowed, dreams folded up and placed on shelves I never reached again. I see a woman who loved harder than she was ever loved back. A woman who kept going even when nobody clapped, thanked her, or noticed. Motherhood was the greatest gift I ever received, and the deepest wound I ever carried. Loving a child means accepting that one day they may walk away holding a life that no longer includes you. Nobody tells you that part. They tell you about babies and first steps. They don't tell you about the silence, the distance, the empty chairs at the table. To the young women listening to me now, hear this from someone who learned it the hard way. Love is not meant to erase you. If loving someone costs you your voice, your safety, your dignity, it ain't love. It's survival dressed up as loyalty. And loyalty should never demand your disappearance. Be patient, yes. Endure, yes. But never confuse endurance with worth. I endured because I had to. You should endure only what makes you stronger, not smaller. Don't marry potential. Marry truth. Don't silence your instincts to keep peace. Don't apologize for seeing clearly. If you become a mother, remember this: your children are not your whole life. They are part of it. Build something that belongs to you, too. Because one day, they will grow up. And if all you are is mom, the world can feel real empty when they leave. Have faith, real faith, the quiet kind, not the kind that promises everything will be okay, but the kind that sits with you when it's not. Faith carried me through nights I thought would break me. It didn't save me from pain, but it saved me from disappearing inside it. And most of all, respect yourself, even when nobody else does. Especially then. I spent too many years waiting for love to come back to me, waiting for apologies that never came, waiting for recognition that showed up too late. Time is the one thing you don't get back. Don't waste it shrinking yourself to fit into places that were never meant to hold you. If my daughter ever hears this, I want her to know I loved her more than my own breath. I still do. And I forgive her. Not because she was right, but because carrying anger weighs too much at this age. I'd rather leave this world light. The house is quiet now. The sun is setting. I can hear the evening birds outside, just like I used to when I was young and didn't know how fast life would move. I don't regret loving. I don't regret giving. I only regret the moments I forgot I mattered to. If you remember anything from my story, let it be this. A woman's strength isn't in how much she survives. It's in how much of herself she protects while surviving. And as my voice fades into this room, I whisper one last truth from what's left of my heart. Don't wait until you're old and tired to realize your life was always worth holding on to.